the amino acids necessary to produce life. That basically cannot happen, and it's been proven definitively that the statistics are just impossible. It can't happen. It's like one in so many, I guess I could say informally gazillions. It's like you see this number. It's like 1 in 10 to the minus 100, whatever. Some kind of ridiculous number that, you probably can't even calculate. It's like one with thousands of zeros behind it. One in that chance of it actually happening. So, needless to say, it's non-existent.
Well, in the beginning there, God says, let us create man in our image.
Yes.
Well, God is not an ape. He's not, a saber-toothed tiger.
That's right.
He is we are in his image,
right.
Male and female.
That's right.
So what is that? Do they just totally dismiss that?
Yes, absolutely they do. Basically, first of all, when you talk to a lot of these guys, unfortunately, you'll run into a few groups. Of course, the atheists or the diehards, they believe there is no God. It's all a bunch of random chance accidents. And
they haven't been in a minefield yet.
Right, they say there's no atheists in foxholes. That's right. No, apparently these guys haven't. If they did, they certainly didn't tell anybody if they prayed. I tell you that much. They say, I'm the master of my fate. I'm the captain of my soul. Nobody can really tell me anything.
Yeah.
Then you have a lot of the scientists that are out there claim to be agnostics. Now, these guys believe that, there may be a God out there, but we can't really know for certain if there's a God or not. Now, most Christians who've had an encounter with the Lord will tell you, oh, yes, you can. God will show up. He will make himself very real in your life if you receive him by faith.
Yes.
However, these guys don't believe that. And then, of course, you have the deists who believe that there is a God, but he kind of wound up creation like a clock and just kind of let it run, and now he's off somewhere else doing his own thing, so you really can't talk to him. So those are the major groups you tend to run into when you run into these scientists. And, when you try to come at them with, we were created in the image and likeness of God, well, can we know God? Who is God? Does he look like a man? What are you talking about? And they come at you with a barrage of questions. So what I've learned in my experience you have to do is basically show them, look, man, what you're buying into with this evolution is not right. The fossil records don't show any definitive evidence. The paleontologists who claim to be evolutionists claim that it doesn't. You have the ape men. There's no definitive evidence whatsoever. When it comes to chance, Fred Hoyle, who is not a believer in Christ at all, has said it's ridiculous to even assume that, this thing could have actually happened by chance. Of course, he posits something called panspermia, where he believes that life came from somewhere else on some other planet, Well, who made it there? That's the question I have for him. But he doesn't believe that it could have happened on Earth. So you have, these guys basically making it clear when they take a look at it. The more they peer into nature, the more complex and awesome it is to them. So much so that even Darwin himself, he wrote the biologist Asa Gray, he said in one of his letters, one of his private letters, that is, the eye gives me a cold shudder. It is an organ of absolute perfection. And what he meant by that was, when I look at the human eye, there's no way it could have evolved over time by chance. The human eye is something that is what's called irreducibly complex.
Oh, yeah.
That means that all of the parts are needed to make it work. It couldn't have just had a lens and then a cornea and then, the gelatin substance and then the rosin coat. It all had to have formed either at once or it would not have formed at all to work. And if it had formed in parts, it would have been selected out by Darwin's own belief system.
Yeah.
So, you have something like that. And Pastor Terry's even talked to us about how he saw a videotape where, they were talking about how there's nothing that they consider more complex in terms of its structural mechanism than the human eye. That thing is more complex than the most complicated camera that exists that's out there. Your brain can make so many trillions of calculations per second. It's the fastest thing that's out there, even faster than your supercomputers when you look at the layers of things that your brain has to account for. Just for you to go to a table and pick up a cup, all of the different calculations that have to go into that one act is sheer, it's just incredible. And it is indescribable in terms of how much goes into that, yet we do it like it's no problem. Yeah. So you see that this thing could not have occurred by chance. Things are irreducibly complex. You take one part out of it, it doesn't work. The eye is a very good example of that. Most of your major organs are like that. For example, scientists can't explain how your liver, for example, within 11 seconds of time, your liver will take the paste that's been breaking down in your stomach, decipher out what it needs, the nutrients in your body, pull them all out, and just leave the waste behind in less than 11 seconds. And it can do that even if you go to some place in another country that you've never been before and eat something you've never eaten before. Yeah. It can select out what are the toxins, what aren't, and that's why sometimes, when you go to other countries, you get that kind of queasy feeling in your stomach. Yeah. What's happening is your liver's like, hey, I don't understand what this is. I don't know what this is. I got to push this out. It's only after time when you're there for a little while it begins to adapt it. But your liver can do that quickly. For all of the different calculations that have to go into the liver making those decisions, scientists can't explain it. They can't explain, for example, how something like the honeybee, can do what it does, how the honeybee can, first of all, build these perfect hexagonal shapes to hold the honey. Engineers have looked at it and said, my goodness, a hexagon is a circle square. A circle square is a perfect shape. It holds precisely the maximum amount of fluid or volume that any shape can hold. A honeybee can generate it just by doing it by instinct. Not only that, honeybees can start the construction of their hive in 3 different areas and construct a perfect, flawless, fluid set of hexagons that intersect perfectly. They'll start at different areas and build by coming together.
Yes.
You have other things about the honeybee. My goodness, there's so much about them. We could do a whole thing on just them. For example, they do this thing whereby when they're selecting out the nectar from the flowers that they're using to make the honey, they'll actually fly back to the hive, maybe about 50, 100 yards away, and while one group of honeybees is kind of standing around them, the honeybee will do this complex figure-8 dance that it does, whereby it flaps its wings and wags its tail and moves around, and by doing that, the other honeybees know exactly where the flowers are that have the nectar in relationship to the movement of the sun. Now, in order for them to do this, not only are we dealing with geometry, we're dealing with trigonometry, actually, and even calculus-type calculations, but what's so fascinating about it is not only does the honeybee do that, but at the time that the honeybee is at the flower to the time that it comes back and the other bees will fly out, the sun is actually moved in the sky. The honeybee that finds the nectar and is communicating this to the other bees will calculate the movement of the sun across time because they have an internal clock built within them to be able to do that. Yeah. So if they saw where the nectar was, so to speak, at, say, 8:50 a.m. and the sun was in that position, they know that the bees are going to fly out at 9:10 a.m., so they're going to do the dance as though the sun was in position at 9:10. Even when it's cloudy outside, they can do that. And scientists know that because they mess up the clock of the honeybee, the internal clock in them, and when they do that, they can't do the little dance and show them where it is. So, you have this sort of thing that you just can't explain any other way by chance. The likelihood that could have all occurred in the honeybee to know how to do all those things and for all the other honeybees to know how to do all that stuff, it's sheer impossible to try to prove it by chance. But when you put in a holy, loving God, you absolutely can prove it.
Yes. Absolutely.
So, you see the fossil remains. You see the ape men. There's nothing there. You see chance. It's absolutely impossible when you introduce irreducible complexity into the equation with the eye, with the honeybee. Not only that, my goodness, you have these Canada monarch butterflies. These things are amazing. There are 4 generations of butterflies that are produced. The first 3 generations live for about 4 to 6 weeks. The 4th generation of monarch butterfly, when it is born and grows to full maturity, what it does on the actual fall equinox, September 21st, these guys fly from Canada for 3,000 miles to a plateau, a volcanic plateau in Mexico to migrate. And when they get there, they live on a water fast for the winter months. Once they finish this water fast on the winter months, then they'll gorge themselves on nectar and mate and then fly off right at the spring equinox of March 21st. Yeah. And they'll fly for 3,000 miles from that plateau,